All right, welcome back. Donald Trump, Kamala Harris set to debate on ABC for the first time September 10th. But how the debate will look, still up in the air. Both campaigns have been accusing each other of not agreeing to certain rules. This week, Donald Trump suggested he was open to some changes from the rules that were set for the CNN debate.
Would you want the microphones muted in the debate whenever you're not speaking?
We agreed to the same rules. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. I'd rather have it probably on, but the agreement was that it would be the same as it was last time. In that case, it was muted. I didn't like it the last time, but it worked out fine.
Now, a spokesman for the Harris campaign tells CNN that both candidates agreed on leaving the mics unmuted.
Our preference, along with Donald Trump himself, is for unmuted microphones. I think the question that you'd have to ask is to Donald Trump and his team, are they in agreement between themselves on how we should approach this debate? Because we are in agreement with Donald Trump that these should be live and unmuted microphones.
All right, joining us now is Jason Miller. He's a senior advisor to the Trump campaign. Jason, welcome back to CNN this morning. Thank you so much for being here. Why do you want the mics muted?
Well, we've already agreed to the rules that we had with the CNN debate, and not only have we agreed, but the Harris camp has agreed as well. We had the rules last week. Both sides agreed that we would stay with the CNN format, which I thought both Jake and Dana did an excellent job. I think CNN as a network did a very good job, very fair job with the debate, and we hope that there's the same performance on ABC's end. But then, strangely, over the weekend, the Harris camp decided to change their minds and want to try to make an issue out of the already agreed to format. And Casey, I think really what was going on, I think is a bit more sinister. I think that the Harris camp was trying to come up with a distraction on the 3rd anniversary of the horrific killing of 13 Americans at Abbey Gate in Afghanistan. Of course, Kamala Harris was the last one in the room for that decision with Joe Biden. And I think that's what this was all about. They wanted to distract away from Kamala Harris's accountability on that issue because both sides had already agreed. We've agreed again. The rules are locked in. They're the same as it was for CNN.
Are you afraid that if you unmuted the mics, the debate would be worse for Mr. Trump?
Well, President Trump is going to be fine regardless of what the format is, but it's already locked in. That's the whole point, is that it was agreed to, the same as it was for CNN, the same as it will be for ABC, and both camps had already agreed to this. In fact, the Harris camp came back with a whole host of other changes that they wanted, but let's put this distraction aside. This is about Kamala Harris finally being held accountable. She can't be talking about the future when she's the one who created the nightmare that we're currently living in. She created the problems with our economy, our border, the global chaos, and you can't be asking for a promotion when really voters should be voting you out of office.
Jason, I also want to ask you about something else that we saw from your boss, Mr. Trump. He posted a pretty crude, reposted a pretty crude image or comment, I should say, about Kamala Harris, the sitting vice president. It also mentioned Hillary Clinton, who, of course, Mr. Trump ran against in 2016. What would you say to the vice president of the United States about the comment that he reposted?
Well, I saw the social media post. I have not discussed that with the president. I don't know if the president even saw the comment that was on there or simply the picture. But I would say with regard to Kamala Harris, the attacks that have been levied by Kamala Harris's, both the campaign, by Harris allies against President Trump, not just recently, but over the past year and a half, 2 years, ever since he came down the escalator, quite frankly, in the case of many left of center people, have been quite horrific. All of this, though, Casey, is a distraction for the real issues that are going on right now.
What was reposted? I mean, I mean,
100 times worse, Casey, 100 times worse. And here's the thing, there's social media posts,
but they haven't
we're
been
talking
sexual
about issues
in nature in this way.
Again, I haven't discussed that with the president. I don't know if the president even saw the comment that was on there. That's not something that I have asked. But we have real people who are struggling with inflation that is hurting this country, with the border crisis. President Trump was just at the border this past week, honoring those who've been killed by this migrant invasion. Jocelyn Nungary and Rachel Moore and Laken Riley, 3 names I do not believe we'll hear from Kamala Harris at the debate on the 10th. That's assuming assuming that Kamala Harris shows up to the debate, which I imagine that she will, because Americans deserve to hear why Kamala Harris has been in hiding for 39 days. Of course, we'll hear from Kamala Harris and Tim Walz when they sit down with Dana to air this evening on CNN. And look, Dana's one of the best in the business, if not the best in the business. I don't think Dana will allow Kamala Harris to hide behind Tim Walz. I think Dana will ask Kamala Harris why she thinks she deserves a promotion and why she hasn't done any of the things over the past 3.5 years that she says that she'll do in the future.
Jason, before I let you go, I want to ask you about one other issue, one story that there was a Politico story about a new book that's set to be published next week from your boss, the former president, that says that Mark Zuckerberg, the head of Meta, plotted against him during the 2020 election, and that the Meta chief executive would, quote, spend the rest of his life in prison, end quote. We also, of course, saw Zuckerberg send a letter to Congress expressing regret about some of the things Facebook did during the last election around misinformation. Does the former president feel this way about Mark Zuckerberg? Does he believe that he should go to jail?
Well, President Trump certainly had a right to be angry at the time, and especially looking back at the, excuse me, the censorship that went on in 2020. I mean, they used this guise of Russian misinformation to outright censor a story that turned out to be very true with the Hunter Biden laptop, and it did manipulate the election. In fact, a post-election study for the Media Research Center said that 1 out of every 7 Biden voter would have looked to go a different way, possibly to President Trump, if they knew about the truth of the foreign business dealings and everything else on Hunter Biden's laptop, specific to Joe Biden and the international.
And is this a jailable offense in your view, in the former president's view?
I'm not a lawyer. I'll leave that up to the lawyers to go and decide on that. But I do think that there was blatant election interference, and there should be some accountability to that. It can't just be a talking point from the left. People have to be held responsible, especially those 51 intelligence officers, for intentionally, very specifically, knowing that that was a lie and pushing this Russian disinformation hoax. But again, the important thing here is it's not back in 2020. We're talking about the future, but a future where we're going to have record low inflation, a secure border. We're not going to have these wars popping up everywhere. And that's where I think the difference is in this campaign, is that President Trump's going to put more money back in people's pockets, but he's telling them exactly how he's going to do it. We don't know from Kamala Harris. Maybe we'll find out from Dana tonight how she's going to pay for any of her plans.
All right. Jason Miller, thank you very much for coming on today. I appreciate your time. Hope you'll come back.
Thank you so much.